Hey guys, thanks for joining me in the garage today. In the video we're going to look at, what we're going to try and do is remove the crankshaft from this engine. I have another engine on a very good lawnmower that actually has a bent crankshaft. So what my plan is, I checked on the internet there to make sure that this engine has the same crankshaft as the other engine for part numbers, and it does, although this one is a 650 series Briggs & Stratton Quantum engine, and the other one is a 725 series Briggs & Stratton. They do have the same crankshaft part numbers, and you can check that out online. So that would be your first step. Second step would be to remove all of the oil from the engine, otherwise you're going to be making a huge mess. So that's where I'm at so far, and I'll take you along for this process here. So first things first, take off this 15/16 nut. Off the top side of the engine. What we need to do is to remove this flywheel off the top side, otherwise we'll never get it out. Now, problem I see here is that there is a break right here, so I have to somehow close off that gap. So I'm going to try and use some vice grips here. Normally what I do a lot of times is put a zip tie, just an electrical zip tie, and that'll hold that together. I'm going to see if I can just close this off enough temporarily by using the vice grips here. All I need to do is hold that that cable, or the brake, I should say, away. And next I'm going to have to put the 15/16 nut. This is how I take my flywheels off. Put the nut back on till it's flush. Then I'll get a crowbar in here, in between the two metal parts. I'll pry while I whack this thing with a hammer. Now this would be a heck of a lot easier if this was still on the mower. It's going to be hard to apply any sort of upwards leverage on this thing. That didn't work. Alright. Plan B. Alright, I got it on the ground now, so it might be a little easier, but plan B is actually probably plan A. I actually put a zip tie on there. And so I'm just applying some pressure onto the bottom of this flywheel, and I'm going to whack it. There we go. Usually only 1 or 2 times, and that'll break that flywheel. There's other ways to do it, but they usually require pullers and stuff. So I'll just keep this flywheel key. That's important. Alright. So I'm going to clean all this off now, and we'll put you back up on the bench. Alright, so I got her back up on the bench here. Got all the top side off. So now we flip her over to the bottom side. So, these look like 3/8, I'm gonna guess, and there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those, and we'll see if they are torqued on. Okay, apparently I can get them off. Now you're gonna want to have something underneath here, because there's no way you could probably get rid of all the oil when you empty it. There's going to be some left over. So I'm just gonna keep track, make sure they're all the same size. Thankfully they are. Alright, so don't really care. Now comes the interesting part, trying to separate the two halves of the case. Now, there's a good chance I might have to break this or remove this bottom crank seal. So a lot of times it won't break apart, or don't say break. It won't just come apart. Oh my goodness. Please let me get lucky. Oh my gosh. That is nice. That is lucky. Alright, so here's all the internals now. So we have a governor, which spins with the camshaft. So as this thing spins, then these weights go out. As they go out, you can see it pushes up on a plunger. That plunger attaches to this governor. Okay, so that looks like it's in good shape. A lot of these things, I'll just keep all this because you never know when you might need another one. Alright, next thing is the camshaft. If you're ever going to be in here and replacing a crank or a cam, they actually each have a marking. So there's a marking on the cam, there's a marking, a little notch on the crank. So here's your mark on your cam, and then there's a mark on the crank on this tooth right here. So those have to line up when you put it all back together. Alright, so when I take this cam out, it just slides up like that. Then you got some lifters, and these lobes actually lift those up and down, which moves your valves at the proper timing, as long as those are set up properly. I'm going to, first thing, remove the spark plug. That'll relieve the pressure inside the cylinder and the piston here, going up and down. That should allow me to spin the crankshaft a little bit easier. What I'm trying to do is get this bottom portion of the connecting rod, there we go, down here, so that I can get a wrench or a socket on there and loosen that keeper. Now let me show you another thing as well. So right here on this keeper, on the bottom half of the connecting rod, there's an arrow, and you can see it's pointing in the up direction. So it is possible to put this keeper on backwards when you reinstall it. So the biggest thing is to remember which way this keeper goes by looking at the arrow. It's pointing up. These are on pretty tight. Ouch. Oh, that one wasn't on as tight, but they're pretty tight on there. I'm going to look up the torque spec for that. when I go to put this one back, when I go to put this one into the other machine, biggest possible ending failure that I've seen thus far is most of my snowboards is this hacking rod. Little hacking rod because you're remember. And I've seen this little keeper thing in pieces. And I've seen these split bolts after that. I don't know nothing far around it. There's this on a snowboard and you go if you go. I've seen pulling the side of the crankcase here. So now there's the other thing you got to remember too. These two bolts are actually one's bigger, longer than the other. So this one goes on the top side, this one goes on the bottom side. You can see that one wouldn't fit in there anyway, so that shouldn't be too hard to remember. And this keeper should just slide off. It looks like it's in good shape. And now I can disconnect one from the other. Now the problem is going to be trying to get this piston up so that it clears. I might have to take the head off. There's a bunch of half-inch bolts there for those. Bolts off. I think they're torqued to about 200 inch-pounds. Well, power down. Sometimes you get bolts after too, so. Now I'm going to try and take the head off and leave all the bolts, because sometimes they're different sizes as well. Alright, so now I just got to get this piston all the way up. And there we go. One crankshaft. Now they put plastic gears on the crankshaft, which I'm not a big fan of. You would think those get worn down pretty easy. Alright guys, so that's how you remove the crankshaft. Alright guys, so I got a little carried away. I got the crankshaft out of the other one. I put it basically not too far behind. I put it in this guy, and I'm just starting to put the connecting rod back to the crankshaft. The donor crankshaft actually had a plastic gear. The original one had a plastic gear. The donor one had a I can't remember. Anyways, I think the original one had the metal gear and the donor had the plastic, so I actually swapped them back so that the metal gear on the crank was actually on the donor. Because obviously I think the metal one is going to be way better. Okay, so I looked up the specs on these bolts here. They're 100 inch-pounds. I do have an inch-pounds torque wrench, but I don't have a 3/8 drive 5/16 small socket like this. So basically I just put this on here and I tightened it with a wrench on the end of it, and it's nice and tight. I mean, it's rotating up and down, no problems. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the camshaft back in and line that up. Before I put the camshaft back in, I'm just going to wipe it all off, try and get any debris or dust or anything off. Here's your decompression mechanism. It's to help pull the engine over. It kind of keeps the exhaust valve open just a little bit longer. and that actually allows for a little bit of decompression in the cylinder, so it's not so hard to turn over. Now, like I was telling you before, there is a mark on one of the there's a mark right here on the cam, and there's a mark on the crank, and these two have to line up for proper timing. Not quite. Alright, perfect, just like that. So the marking on the cam for a crank lines up with the marking on the cam. So we're in business. If those don't line up, then your timing is going to be off for your ignition timing. Alright, so as you can see, I'm going to need a new gasket here. I'll probably just order one, so I'm going to have to scrape all this off. Let's see. That guy just sits in like that. Okay, so she's ready to go back on with the sump cover once I get a gasket. It's going to take me a few days to get that. So once I get the gasket, guys, then I'll start putting her back together and hopefully get her back on the mower and see how she runs. That's it for tonight. It's 9:15 now, so I'll see you guys all tomorrow or the next day. Thanks. How's it going, guys? It's a couple days later now. I finally got my gasket in, so I got all my parts back together. Got my crank and the cam all lined up, the markings like I showed you in the last video, or last little bit. And I got my oil slinger and my governor back on, and I'm just ready to put the top part of the case back on, and I'll tighten them down. I checked the specs on the bolts there. They're all 90 inch-pounds, so that's where we're heading next. Alright, so I've cleaned all the parts off, carb cleaner. I cleaned up all the old gasket, and everything should be good. There we go, a little bit of persuasion. Alright, good, we're in business. Put all my 5/16 bolts back in. So I'll just cinch them down. So I'm going to go to 90 inch-pounds on my torque wrench here. Alright, so there's 90. And I'm just going to tighten those guys up in a crisscross pattern until I hear it click. That's not that much, actually. Alright, I got them all. I think we're ready to get this guy back on the deck. I'm going to get her back on the mower, and I'll bring you back once I got her back on the deck. Alright guys, last update on this machine. I got the crankshaft and everything put back in, and she's all put back together, and she's running like a top. Let me just give you a quick demo, and we'll call this one done. Alright guys, swapped out the crankshaft on this nice Craftsman self-propel. So she's all ready to go. I'll just do one last little wipe down and then I'll post it. Thanks for watching guys. If help somebody out, if you like the content, please hit the subscribe button, maybe give it a thumbs up there. It really helps me out on the channel. Till next time, take care.